flow. So yeah, so that's kind of a little bit of housekeeping. Other things to say are just a really a big thank you to all the sponsors of Bath Digital Festival, because without their support, I'm certain that the festival wouldn't have been possible this year, particularly to have changed the format so much. And well done to the whole team of Bath Digital Festival for getting it up and running this year and delivering it digitally in digital fashion. And thank you for the invite. Thank you for asking me to be here today. Here's some of our details. You can contact us at all of these various channels and more. In fact, since I wrote this slide deck, we're on TikTok, we're on LinkedIn, Snapchat, all that good stuff. So feel free to tweet me, tweet us, post stuff on Instagram. That would be great. If you want to add something to your stories, that would be amazing. Please use our hashtag #UpgradeYourSocial. That would be wicked. I did try and have a look around for the Bath Digital Festival hashtag, but couldn't quite see one. So I'm sure there is probably one bouncing around. But yeah, hashtag #UpgradeYourSocial for us would be amazing. A little bit about me, really. My name's Natalie. I'm the founder of Naturally Social. And in a nutshell, we resource the difference makers of the world with social media and communications expertise. What that means in practicality is we are a comms agency. We provide PR, social media, marketing, design, graphic design, branding, and social media management and paid stuff to businesses and charities, not-for-profits. Anybody who puts purpose before profit is how I say. If you're a private company, as long as you have a story to tell and purpose behind what you do, then we would love to work with you. Do check us out online. And this is our session today. I delivered this session earlier in the year, actually a similar one at the Southwest Charity Conference. And I thought the messages were still real today, still relevant, and therefore I wanted to kind of to present this one to you guys today too. There we go. So last September, Facebook alone announced that global fundraising for charities, personal causes, and non-profit organisations had reached £1.6 billion worldwide, which is immense. And for me, really, it kind of makes my heart sing. It really underpins my values of social media for social good, and it really explains, why underpins the reasoning why social media is relevant and valid for anyone, really, from private sector to charitable sector to third sector and beyond. And I really love this quote from Eric Coleman, is that we don't really have a choice on whether we do social media. The question really is how well we do it. And that's what I'm here to talk to you today about. A lot of this stuff isn't rocket science. A lot of this stuff, we don't come into tactics like specifics and how to do it. If anybody wants opportunity to learn the ins and outs of how to use social media channels, please get in touch with us. We have a very popular mentoring program. Very happy to hear from you guys. But these are often the things that go forgotten, I would say, in a social media strategy, or when businesses are starting to look at digital. So I'm going to pick up these three main things. For me, ways to shine online and to really stand out from others is to pick the right place. Seems obvious, but not enough businesses do that. They tend to go onto Facebook because everybody tends to go to Facebook, or they start on Instagram because that's what they like to do personally. They don't think about the right place where their audience or customer is. Secondly, people just don't say the right things. They don't think. There often is a jar between what I should say personally on social media versus what I should say for this business that I represent. And often we forget what makes good social. And thirdly, it is really all about putting the social back into social media and remembering that these are conversation tools. And if I could leave you with anything, I think, from today's session, it would be the element of that, the point 3, is to remember conversation. Okie dokie. So let's crack on and break those 3 things down. Picking the right place. Now, not all social media platforms are built equal. For example, Twitter is great for short videos. LinkedIn is great for business contacts, whereas Instagram, as we all I'm sure know, is all about imagery and that luxury lifestyle. So as your time and energy will no doubt be limited, make sure to think about what platforms are most appropriate for your particular charity, business, organization, but also for your content or campaign. So these are just some of the stats. If you were to break down who it is you're trying to attract with a campaign, or who it is that you're trying to talk to, who your customer is, understanding the stats for each channel will help you to determine where you're going to be showing up, where you're going to be hanging out. LinkedIn, this is a great stat that I pulled out. 550,000 people locally to Bath have an active LinkedIn profile. 56% of those users are male. That's overall, sorry, not out of that 550,000. And a majority of users are between 30 to 64 years old. It's a really high affluent platform. So if in particular you're looking to get through to speak to and connect with decision makers of an organization, then LinkedIn is undoubtedly a place to be. 21 million users in the UK versus Facebook. You know, Facebook is the thing that everybody knows. It's our gateway social media channel, as we like to refer to it. You know, everyone starts on Facebook if they're not used to social media, and then they might escalate out onto others. And even though here we've got this figure of 24% of users globally are female, which is true, it is a much higher female-male split. 44.86 million residents in the UK are using Facebook. These stats were from December last year, just December, January, so these are probably slightly different now. And Facebook's gender split overall is that female and male divide. But again, I think it's really important to note that I'm sure many of you know the Facebook's audience are an older audience. They are growing. I think it's 55 plus is the fastest growing age demographic on that channel. And whereas it might boast the highest amount of Gen Z users or millennials, a lot of those younger demographics, the kind of 18 to 24-year-olds, will create an account on Facebook and maybe use it only specifically to talk one-to-one through things like Messenger and stories, which is a really important point to note. They might not actually be actively consuming things in the newsfeed, but they like to engage one-to-one through Messenger. Then we look at Instagram, much more visual, much more kind of about discovery, brand discovery. Lots of people, younger users, are using Instagram to find brands they love and find businesses they want to buy from. Again, more of a female-dominated platform, much younger demographic as well, versus, again, something like Twitter, which predominantly has a greater male to female audience. And even with Snapchat here. So we've got some stats for Snapchat. Some people might have thought Snapchat has died. I would disagree and say that it still has its place, but if you are definitely targeting a much younger audience. But also if you are looking to be creative because there's a lot of creators on Snapchat, be creative in how you're advertising what you do. And Snapchat is much more about gamification and VR these days. So there is some fun to be had still for businesses, but perhaps a small company trying to target 55 to 64-year-olds predominantly, Snapchat probably isn't the channel for you. So understanding where your audience are and who you want to target for in your campaign specifically is really, really important. Picking them up, and you don't have to be everywhere. You know, making sure that you put all your energy into one place. If resources are an issue, then be brave to do that. The other thing to note is that if you are spread across multiple channels, really you need to think about not copying and pasting all content across everywhere. That's kind of lazy social media management, I would say. I mean, adapt a message. The message that you want to share might be the same because all of your audience needs to hear that message, but how you share it on certain channels needs to differ. You know, younger language versus older language, stories versus static content. So picking the right place is really important, and then understanding how those channels work will be key in understanding where you need to be. So don't simply copy and paste all your content across channels, as I said. What platform gets the most engagement? Ask yourself that. Look at your stats, look at your analytics, understand what works better for you, and kind of decide what has the most reach and what of your channels has the biggest audience as well. And that will help you to understand where you need to be to begin with. Then when you break down just some of the channels, as I mentioned earlier, understanding that each channel works differently is important. You can't be posting everything in the same way across all channels. So these definitions here are probably developed and expanded somewhat over months. This was taken last year from a Buffer article. I thought they described some of the breakdown of the channels quite well. So Facebook's all about video content, like massive emphasis on video content across all channels really. But Facebook is really driving its algorithm through video content. Instagram, all about that high-res luxury feel, photos, quotes, inspiring stories. Twitter, from what I see, is the best place for kind of showing links to third-party sites, really going in on becoming the place to go for news, great for showing blog posts, and of course, the wonderful GIF. LinkedIn is your place to, of course, discover work opportunities. But also when I look at what we share and what we advise our clients to share on LinkedIn, it is more about that company news and professional content, statistics, impact, etc. There's Pinterest, through Pinterest in there as well. Great for SEO, really, really great for SEO. Doesn't require as much on time, I would say, as a lot of the other channels either. Especially when you look at something like Twitter. Great for visuals, infographics, step-by-step photo guides. Really, really good, as I said, for SEO and discoverability. So I mentioned understanding the tools for each platform. Once you've decided where you want to be, you understand who it is that you're trying to target and what channel they're hanging out on. It's really key that you understand the tools that are available to you. So being creative is huge. You know, you have to use the tools that are at your disposal. They're there for a reason, and they most often mirror general user behaviors. So, you know, they'll roll out features like live video or stories or stickers, let's say, into users' feeds first, and then those features will often be quickly replicated over onto business profiles. And they are there for a reason, because that's what users enjoy using, and that's what makes the content creative and stand out. We have a term that we talk about, thumb-stopping content. How can you use the tools available to you to create thumb-stopping content? I think that was a Facebook term actually that they created a while ago. You know, when we're fighting for everybody's attention on our mobile phones, how do we stop? How do we get those people to stop, give us their attention, and not simply scroll past, but actually stop and engage and do something? So there's a lot of different tools on platforms, from, as I said, the wonderful stories, which is our 24-hour shelf life content, if you will. bite-sized snackable chunks that everybody's loving across Instagram in particular, but derived from Snapchat, now available on Facebook and LinkedIn, and rumour of Twitter introducing something very similar as well. So if you're not using stories on any channel, particularly on Instagram, then you're really far behind in terms of gaining somebody's attention, gaining people's attention to the stories. But it's not too late, and think about how you can integrate stories into your strategy, no matter what platform you're using, if that function is there. I think it really represents a trend as well for people still wanting and enjoying that one-to-one exchange of a consumption, of content. People enjoy that full screen experience, just them and the content creator, as opposed to that scrolling behavior where there are adverts above, posts below, things popping up from the right, etc. And I think that is kind of driven by a younger audience, but it's definitely a trend that's been replicated across other platforms. To understand the tools, live video versus pre-record. Live video has now been rolled out across even LinkedIn and LinkedIn company pages, and predominantly live video sits at the top of a lot of algorithms and a lot of channel algorithms. So when you create live video, you will be rewarded for doing that. So understanding the differences between that and when you should be creating pre-recorded content. Paid ads, polls. The polls feature is extremely popular across all channels as well. Hashtags, knowing when to use those and what channel, that's really important. But those tools are there for you to use to make your content stand out and be discovered. Just this month, there's been some updates from Facebook, who, from earlier this year and before, I was kind of saying to people, don't use hashtags on Facebook. You can use them, they're there, but they're a feature that doesn't really benefit your post reach. And just 3-4 weeks ago, there's been some updates from Facebook saying they're going to start rewarding content with hashtags in. So we're still yet to see that, and we're experimenting ourselves. But again, something to be aware of. So from LinkedIn to Instagram, Help for Heroes to Greenpeace, the best charities and indeed businesses stand out online when they format their content to the relevant audience behavior and use the tools that are relevant and native to that platform. I mentioned a short while ago, LinkedIn company pages now offering live streaming, which is a huge addition to their platform. Stories on Instagram, people are no longer scrolling up when they're on Instagram, they're scrolling across. So if you're not using stories, you're potentially being lost and not getting as much reach as well. That brings us on to point 2. Okay, once you've understood the platform and we understand the tools, saying the right thing. It involves a tricky balance between reminding your followers of your cause or your business and encouraging them to take action, but not overdoing it and putting people off. I think a well-planned social media campaign, thinking about timing and content of posts, does much better than endless repetitive posts. So really encouraging you all to think quality over quantity. And it's really tempting when you're in marketing roles to create every post with a call to action or a link. But it really does turn off the audience. And when your audience aren't engaged with your posts, you're sending signals to algorithms on social media channels that your content isn't engaging, and therefore you're not rewarded subsequently. So these are my 3 top tips, really. These are your 3 categories that your content should fit into. When you're writing something on any social media channel, and this has been statistically researched and proven, you really want to be educating, entertaining, or inspiring your audience. So ask yourself, what of those things, if you've got something to say, what bracket does it fall under? What category? Does it educate, does it entertain, or does it inspire? And think about the 80-20 rule, which a lot of people will be familiar with, but use the 80-20 rule when posting. So 80% of the time, Create something that's value-based, something that educates, something that entertains, something that inspires. And then 20% of the time, create something that is a call to action. Because what we're doing in that 80% of the time is building a relationship with our audience. We are proving our value, and we are caring about our community, so that when we do that, we build their trust, and that 20% of the time when we put a call to action out, they're more likely to convert based on, in comparison to a strategy that focuses on the other way around, and 80% of the time creating call to actions. So on that same vein, saying the right things, we have to touch upon the power of storytelling. And you might see this and hear this a lot in social media marketing or in comms and marketing in general. But putting storytelling at the heart of your comms will not just increase visibility, but it really will help you stand out. Stories about your products and your services isn't storytelling. Make sure you explain the story behind your product or your business and why you do what you do. The better people understand how, for instance, in a charitable environment, how their money can make a difference, the more likely they are to donate. When you focus as a bit from a private sector point of view on really valuing the people's attention on your timeline, is when people are more likely to stay engaged and refer, recommend, and use you. One of the most powerful storytelling formats is video. I mentioned video just a short while ago. And while many I know shy away from the thought of film, it doesn't have to mean big budget or big production. Some of the most moving films have been shot using very little kit and in short time frames. And I know there'll be lots of digital agencies, branding agencies, and videography companies around the area, which I totally would encourage people, if there is budget, to definitely use them, because the best results and the best stories will be told when you're using experts. But if you're just getting started and the budgets aren't there, then it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. You know, innovation and creativity are really key on social media. And I hope some of those slides that I've just gone through echo that sentiment. And going back to understanding the tools of each platform, if you're not utilizing certain tools quickly, then you're basically on the back burner and playing catch up. So be brave to try new things, be brave to try new tools, new formats, new trends. The sooner you do that, the more you'll stand out, and the quicker you'll understand what works for your audience. Mind, I love Mind, the charity. They do this really well by encouraging their fundraisers to grab their phone and record stories that they can then share online, as well as asking people who have experienced mental health problems to make a video blog to share their story. These powerful, real stories from real people are then shared on their social media and are hugely impactful. To mark the start of Farm Safety Week, a couple of years ago, little West Country reference here for farms. A couple of years ago, the Farm Safety Foundation, who are a charity dedicated to raising awareness of farm safety and changing attitudes towards farming, launched an emotive film to warn people about the dangers of the industry. This film features James, who lost his left arm in 2005 while working with farm machinery. And the reel sees him attending his daily tasks, while a poem is recited in the background about the monotony of his routine. And that's just a really great example. If you do Google them and go and check it out, it's just a good way to underpin the necessity of creativity to storytell. So, saying the right thing, picking the right place, and finally, putting the social back into social media. This is one of my things that I do care the most about, I would have to say, when it comes to organic socials. Go to where the conversation is happening. It's really, really key. People don't spend enough time when they're on their socials to respond to comments, to ask questions, to go to where the conversation is happening. And by that, I mean other hyperlocal Facebook groups or community hashtags or groups on LinkedIn, groups of interest. A lot of people spend time going out where the conversation is happening, because by and large, where the conversation is happening, people are being more open, I would say, and are more engaged, rather than waiting for people to come to us. Certainly when I used to work in local government as social media management and digital manager there, when we first started a Facebook page and a Twitter account, I never thought it would be, you know, game changing. Well, actually, we found we had the most impact when we went out into the community digitally, virtually, going into Facebook groups, into Twitter hashtags, Twitter hours, and scouring kind of community tags on Instagram in order to find what people were talking about and if we could help them, or if they were indeed talking about us and we weren't even aware of that. And the opportunity for us to then turn people's opinions around or answer questions and influence behavior massively increased versus trying to expect and want people to come over to our pages and find us. So social listening, really, really key there. You know, tools like Hootsuite that I'm sure you've all heard of, or Buffer or Sprout Social can give you the tools to to set up and track keywords and mentions of your brand or mentions of something about your industry, as well as specific hashtags. So that's social listening. Recognition, this is particularly when it comes to donors and charitable organisations. Publicly thanking donors is really, really key. Letting them know how their money is going to be used. Contacting people on social media with personal messages of thanks and to remind them of the difference they've made is a really important way to build advocacy and brand loyalty, and will really make you stand out online. Most platforms now prioritize conversation in their algorithms. So if people are commenting or asking questions on your social, you need to be responding back. I think a lot of social media users in a business capacity quite passive when they see comments, positive comments, particularly. Negative ones always seem to get a response, but positive comments, and they'll just get a like back, a like on it. But actually, that's kind of, you know, it's like being given a compliment and just kind of walking away from it, or patting somebody on the back. So twofold. One, you know, being social and actually responding to positive comments is key. But actually, from a tactical point of view with the algorithm, if you respond to stuff, then your posts will be escalated with reach and sent out to more people anyway. Yeah, so even, you know, Facebook and Instagram publicly post about the fact that conversations and meaningful interactions will be rewarded more so in algorithms, in newsfeed. And then lastly, that point here is doing your hashtag research. It's really important, particularly with things like Instagram, for you to find the right hashtags for you to use. And using hashtags that have millions and billions of posts next to them probably aren't going to bring you much return, but finding some really niched hashtags that are relevant to your business or industry or area which you live in, finding those that actually have engagement alongside them is really key for you to integrate those into your strategy. Take some time if you're doing that all manually, but putting aside that time to discover hashtags that are being engaged with and where there's actually communities involved with is really rewarding for your own content, and will really help you build a decent hashtag bank for use on your social media. Okie dokie, and I think that's nicely bringing us up into some opportunity for Q&A. One thing, as I would say, really to go over with that slide is go where that conversation is happening. I've got a couple of questions. I'm just going to jump into the Q&A section. Lovely couple of questions. Sounds a bit crackly. Not sure if it's mine or your speakers. Sorry, Fiona. Hopefully that wasn't my Wi-Fi and that all sounded okay. Anonymous attendee, are you able to repost customer photos that they have posted on their social media on your feed? What I would say to that is you can when you have permissions. So if you're using it to promote what you do across other channels, i.e. take a screenshot or screen grab it, then I would always ask for permission, thank them, and ask them if you can use it. There are certain things like retweeting or reposting where the original publisher is cited in your post creation, and that's okay to do. But certainly, and when it comes to things like feedback and testimonials, then yes, you can, because it's all public content. Thank you guys for your questions. Is there any other questions before we begin to wrap up? I'm going to go on to my final slide for you this morning and give you just a couple of minutes to pop any other questions into the Q&A box. But really just to wrap up on standing out online, let's see if it moves away, there we go. Some top takeaway tips for you is to know who you're targeting when you're setting out on your social media journey, or indeed when you're launching a new campaign, and make sure you align your message to that audience. Be sure to adapt your approach to each platform. Be brave and be creative. Try new things. When creating content on social, remember to ask yourself, are you educating, entertaining, or inspiring your audience? And lastly, always, or not always, but let's work to put the social back into social media and really have conversations with people. Cool. That brings me to the end of today's session. I want to thank you all for joining. I'm just going to jump back into the Q&A. Yes, Mark, can I reiterate #research? Yes, of course. So what we do here, if you're going to be building a bank of hashtags for, let's say, your Instagram strategy for the inclusion of hashtags in your post, what we want to do is have a mixture of industry-related hashtags or locality-based hashtags. And what we don't want to do is use ones which are ridiculously large with millions of posts attached to it. So when you tend to use the search function on Instagram, for example, in the top bar, if you typed in hashtag social media, for example, it will tell you how many posts are associated with that hashtag. And if it's within the millions, it's a pretty good indicator straight away to not bother using it, because there is so much content across the world on that platform that your posts are likely to be seen or engaged with. A good tip is to keep scrolling that list and finding some smaller community-based hashtags with smaller numbers, and then having a look through those posts that are associated to that smaller hashtag and see if there's a lot of conversation happening on those posts. That will then be an indicator as to whether or not it's worth using. Okie dokie, another question. How can we persuade our audience to share our posts to their own stories on Instagram for better reach? Good idea. Lots of ways you can do that. A few things, incentivize them for a start. Depending on what you do, without knowing what you do, like for me today, I would say at the very beginning, and I would say now as well, like if anyone wants to add a story, take a picture and tag me in it, I will add you to my story and I will mention your business. Please feel free to do that at NLY Social. But incentivizing competitions, offline call to actions. So if you are sending out posters or emails, if you're a product-based business, having a kind of a card or a call to action on any documentation that you send or print letters, etc. Having a call to action that says, tell us what you think, use hashtag anonymous, for example, in your stories. So that's a few ways that you can do that. You can encourage them. Zoe, thank you for your question. When do you use the tag and when do you use the @? So the @ is when you want to specifically mention somebody or talk to someone. So I will always use the @ symbol when I'm at the tag of somebody's account when they are in that picture, when it's a partnership, when I am at a building or a venue working alongside somebody. I would use that. And then if they have a branded hashtag, I would include that in there. So for us, it's hashtag upgrade your social. For, let's say, Digital Mansion or Bath Digital Festival, let's say hashtag Bath Digital Festival. I would use those the hashtags when I want to add my content to a wider picture of conversation, where it perhaps doesn't matter necessarily that that direct individual, i.e. Bath Digital Festival or myself, need to know that I've created that post, but I want that post to become a part of a wider conversation. And what is an SEO? Good question, Zoe. SEO is search engine optimization. These are the things that contribute to your website and web content being found in Google search, Bing search, etc., etc. And simply SEO are, it's a form of tactics, I guess, multiple tactics used in digital content to help your website be discovered and be found more. Some great questions there. Has anybody else got any other questions? If not, not to worry at all. As I said, here you've got some details on the front, info@naturallysocial.co.uk. If you would like to get in touch with us after today, we'd love to hear from you. Our website is down on the bottom right hand of the screen too, naturallysocial.co.uk. If you would like information on our social media and marketing mentoring programs, as well as if you're looking to outsource or insource some experts into your business, then we'd love to hear from you as well. But thank you to everybody for joining me this morning. Thank you to Bath Digital Festival for inviting me. Thank you to all the sponsors for making it happen. Enjoy the rest of the festival, and I really hope we link up on social media after today. Thanks very much, guys.